Millionaire despairs upon discovering his daughter has fallen for the janitor. Then he does this. Richard Anderson felt the world crumbling around him as he held the trembling wedding dress he'd found hidden in his daughter's closet. It was 3 in the morning and his mind couldn't process what he was seeing. There, delicately embroidered on the white veil, was the name that made his blood boil. Tyler Johnson, the janitor of his corporate building. The same young man in a baseball cap and simple uniform who respectfully greeted him every day in the marble hallways of his company. "Dad?" Emma's startled voice echoed through the room. She had just returned from college to find the door open, the lights on, and her father holding her deepest secret. Richard turned slowly, the dress still dangling from his hands. His eyes, usually sharp and calculating in business, now showed a mix of shock and disappointment Emma had never seen before. "Explain this." His voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. Emma swallowed hard. At 22, she had always been the obedient daughter, the exemplary business student her father had molded to take over the family empire. But now, still wearing the light blouse she'd worn to meet Tyler earlier, she knew there was no hiding anymore. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain how my daughter, the heiress to a business empire, is planning to marry the janitor?" Richard tossed the dress onto the bed with a sharp motion. "Explain how you kept this from me for so long." Tears began streaming down Emma's face. For months, she had rehearsed this conversation, prepared arguments, imagined scenarios. But nothing had prepared her for the pain she saw in the eyes of the man who had raised her alone after her mother died when she was just 8. "I love him, Dad." "Love?" Richard laughed bitterly. "Sweetheart, you don't know what love is. You're young, impressionable. That boy obviously saw an opportunity and Tyler doesn't know who I am." Emma burst out, interrupting her father for the first time in her life. "He doesn't know I'm your daughter. To him, I'm just Emma Thompson, a student he met in the university library." Richard fell silent for a few seconds, processing this. As a successful businessman, he had always been able to read people, identify their motives, but this made no sense. "What do you mean he doesn't know?" "I use Mom's last name at school. I never told him about our life, the company, anything. He knows me for who I am, not what I have." Richard walked to the bedroom window, gazing at the city below. New York City buzzed even in the early morning hours, its lights twinkling like distant stars. He had built his empire in that city, working 18-hour days, sacrificing everything for the family that now seemed to be falling apart. "How long?" "6 months," Emma answered softly. "6 months and you didn't tell me a thing? Not a word." "How could I, Dad? You barely have time to ask how my day was. When was the last time we had dinner together? Talked about something other than the company?" Emma's words hit Richard like punches to the gut. He turned to face her, seeing for the first time not the obedient girl he knew, but a grown woman with her own thoughts and desires. "Everything I've done was for you, Emma. Every sacrifice, every extra hour at work. To make sure you had the best of everything." "I know, Dad. And I'm grateful. But what I wanted most was to have my father present, not just a distant provider." Richard felt something tighten in his chest. He remembered Catherine, his late wife, always telling him he needed to spend more time with their daughter. But there was always an important meeting, a crucial contract, an opportunity that couldn't be missed. "And now?" he asked, gesturing toward the dress. "Do you really intend to marry him?" Emma nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "More than that, Dad, I'm pregnant." If Richard thought his world had collapsed before, now it felt like he'd been hit by an earthquake. His legs weakened and he leaned on Emma's desk. "Pregnant," he repeated, as if the word were foreign in his mouth. 2 months, I found out last week. And does he know?" "Not yet. I was going to tell him tonight. We plan to run away tomorrow, have a simple ceremony, and start our life together." Richard closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 22 years of dedication to business crashing down on him. His only daughter, the center of his universe, was pregnant by a man he barely knew and planning to run away from home. "Where did you meet? How did this all start?" Emma hesitated for a moment, then sat on the edge of the bed. At the NYU library. I was studying for an economics exam, and he was there reading a book about gardening. He stayed late because he had a night class in business administration. He studies business. Yes. He works during the day and studies at night. He's in his 3rd year. He wants to open his own landscaping company someday. Richard opened his eyes and looked at his daughter. There was something in the way she spoke about Tyler that he couldn't ignore. Her eyes sparkled, her voice grew softer, warmer. What did you talk about? Everything. Dreams, life. How he takes care of his sick mother. Dad, Tyler is different from all the guys I've met. He doesn't try to impress me with money or status. He really listens to me. His mother is sick. Mrs. Ruth has diabetes and heart problems. Tyler spends almost his entire salary on medicine and doctor visits. That's why he still lives in the same small house in the South Bronx where he grew up. Richard absorbed this information in silence. As a businessman, he was used to analyzing data, but these facts about Tyler Johnson didn't fit the profile he'd created in his mind. Emma, do you understand the situation? You're the heir to a fortune worth tens of millions. You have a guaranteed future, a life of comfort and opportunities, and you're willing to throw it all away for a guy who can barely support his own mother? I'm not throwing anything away, Dad. I'm choosing a life with real meaning. Tyler makes me feel valued for who I am, not for what I have. And what will happen when he finds out who you really are? When he learns about the inheritance, the company? Emma was silent for a long moment. I hope he loves me enough to accept it. And I hope you love me enough to accept my choice. Richard walked to the bed and picked up the dress again, examining the delicate embroidery details. It was simple, but made with care and affection. Who made this? Mrs. Linda, Tyler's mother's neighbor. She's a retired seamstress. She did it for free because she said she'd never seen Tyler as happy as he is with me. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Richard sighed deeply. In his mind, he was already making plans. Maybe he could talk to the young man, explain the situation, offer generous compensation to stay away from Emma. Or perhaps he could transfer his daughter to a university in another state, far from New York City. Dad, I know what you're thinking, Emma said, as if reading his thoughts. But it won't work. Not this time. Emma, be reasonable. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. You don't have to get married now, especially in a situation like this. A situation like what? With a hard-working, honest man who loves me? With a man who can't give you the life you deserve. And what life do I deserve, Dad? A life like ours? Life like where work always comes first, where there's no time for conversation, for affection, for really getting to know each other. Richard felt as if he'd been slapped in the face. For the second time that night, his daughter's words struck him deeply. I did my best, Emma. I know, Dad, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. But now, I need to do what's best for me and my baby. Richard looked at his daughter's still flat stomach, trying to imagine his grandchild growing there. A baby who would be raised by a janitor in the South Bronx, far from the comfort and opportunities he could provide. Let me meet him, he said suddenly. What? Let me meet this Tyler. If he's really as special as you say, if he truly loves you, then I want to know him. Emma's eyes widened in surprise. Dad, he doesn't know I'm your daughter. How do I explain that? Tell the truth. To both of them. Arrange a dinner, here at home. I want to look this young man in the eye and see for myself what kind of man he is. Emma fell silent, torn between hope and fear. She knew her father well enough to understand that behind this seemingly kind invitation was a strategy. Richard Anderson never did anything without a plan. And if after meeting him you still don't approve, then we'll have a very serious conversation about the future of the Anderson family. The tone of Richard's voice made it clear this wasn't an empty threat. A shiver ran down Emma's spine. Okay, I'll talk to him tomorrow. Good. And Emma? Yes, Dad. Don't run. At least not until we've had this talk. You owe me that. Emma nodded, knowing she'd only postponed the inevitable. She knew her father too well to believe he'd simply accept the situation. Richard Anderson was a man used to controlling everything around him, and discovering his daughter had made such important decisions without consulting him wasn't something he'd let slide easily. Richard left the room quietly, closing the door behind him. He walked through the halls of his Upper East Side mansion, past the expensive paintings and imported furniture that seemed to witness his loneliness. Catherine had always said the house was too big for just 3 people, and now, with only him and Emma, it felt even emptier. He entered his office and poured himself a whiskey, sitting behind the desk where he spent most of his nights working. There, surrounded by the symbols of his success, he tried to gather his thoughts. Tyler Johnson. The name echoed in his mind. How many times had he passed that young man in the company hallways without really seeing him? How many times had he absent-mindedly greeted him, thinking only of his next meeting? He picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. "Michael, it's Richard. I know it's late, but I need a favor. I want all the information you can get on one of our employees. Tyler Johnson works in maintenance at the main building." On the other end of the line, Michael Reynolds, the company's HR director for over 15 years, didn't seem surprised by the unusual request. He was used to his boss's eccentricities. "Of course, Richard. Should I send the report tomorrow morning?" "I want it now. Email me everything you have. Work history, references, evaluations, everything." "Got it. Can I ask if there's a problem?" Richard hesitated. Michael was one of the few employees he trusted completely, but this situation was too delicate to share. "Nothing serious, just a routine check." He hung up and opened his computer, anxiously awaiting Michael's email. As he waited, his mind raced. How had he missed the signs? Emma had changed over the past few months. She was happier, more distracted, going out more often. He had chalked it all up to the stress of college, but now everything made sense. The ping of a new email snapped him out of his thoughts. He quickly opened the message from Michael. "Tyler Johnson, 23 years old, born in New York City, has worked at the company for 2 years. Excellent employee, punctual, dedicated, no disciplinary issues or complaints. Currently studying business administration at City College evening classes. Salary, $2,200 per month. Previous references, all positive." Richard kept reading. "Lives with his mother, Ruth Johnson, 58, retired due to disability. No assets in his name, no record of past relationships or legal issues." The report was straightforward, but it revealed nothing he could use against the young man. On the contrary, it painted the picture of a hard-working, responsible guy. Richard closed his laptop, frustrated. He had hoped to find something, anything, to justify his suspicions, but all he saw was the record of an exemplary employee. He finished his whiskey and headed to the bedroom, though he knew sleep wouldn't come. His mind was flooded with images of Emma pregnant, living in a modest house in the South Bronx, raising his grandchild far from everything he had built. In the next room, Emma was also awake, staring at the wedding dress now draped over the chair. She picked up her phone and texted Tyler, "We need to talk tomorrow, it's important." The reply came minutes later. "Is everything okay, love? Did something happen?" Emma hesitated before answering, "Everything's fine. I love you." But she knew nothing was fine. In truth, she felt like she was about to lose everything she had built with Tyler. The pure, sincere love she'd found, based on who she truly was, now tainted by the reality of her privileged life. The next morning, Richard arrived at the office earlier than usual. He wanted to see Tyler Johnson with fresh eyes, to observe him without the young man knowing he was being scrutinized. He walked through the ground floor corridors, where he didn't usually spend much time. The 20-story building housed the headquarters of his construction and real estate development companies. Here, amid marble and glass, he had built his empire over 25 years of hard work. He found Tyler in the building's indoor garden, meticulously tending to the plants. The young man wore a clean, well-kept uniform, though simple. He had an athletic build, a neatly trimmed beard, and careful movements as he watered the flowers. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson," Tyler greeted him respectfully as he approached. Good morning, Tyler. The plants look lovely. Thank you, sir. I really enjoy taking care of them. It's kind of a hobby of mine. Richard noticed the genuine smile on the young man's face, the enthusiasm in his voice as he spoke about the plants. There was no trace of falseness or hidden motives in his demeanor. You're in school, aren't you? Tyler seemed surprised the boss knew. Yes, sir. Business administration, evening classes. I'm in my third year. Do you plan to keep working here after graduation? Well, sir, I'd like to start my own landscaping business someday. I've always dreamed of working with plants and gardens, but that's still a ways off. I need to save up first. Richard nodded, noting the humility and determination in the young man's voice. And your family? Do you live with anyone? I live with my mom, Mr. Anderson. She's not in the best health, so I prefer to stay close to take care of her. I see. Keep up the good work with the plants. Richard walked away, more confused than before. There was something about Tyler that defied all the prejudices he'd built up. The young man was polite, hard-working, had dreams, and cared for his sick mother. He didn't seem anything like the opportunist Richard had imagined. At that very moment, across town, Emma was on the NYU campus, waiting for Tyler at their usual meeting spot, the library. Her hands trembled as she mentally rehearsed how she would tell him the truth about her identity. Tyler arrived right on time, as always, with his student backpack and the smile that made her feel special. Hi, love. I got your message last night. Is something wrong? Emma took a deep breath. Tyler, I need to tell you something really important. Several things, actually. He sat beside her, gently taking her hand. Go ahead. I'm here. First, I wasn't completely honest about who I am. Tyler looked at her curiously without judgment. What do you mean? My name isn't Emma Thompson. It's Emma Anderson. My father is Richard Anderson. The name didn't immediately ring a bell for Tyler. Anderson, wait, Richard Anderson from the construction company. Your dad owns the company where I work. Emma nodded, watching his expression shift from curiosity to shock. You're the boss's daughter? I am. And there's more. I'm pregnant, Tyler. 2 months along. If Tyler had been surprised before, now he looked completely stunned. He stayed silent for several minutes, processing the news. Pregnant? Emma, that's amazing. His face lit up with a genuine smile. We're having a baby. Emma felt relief wash over her when his first reaction was joy, not fear or rejection. You're not mad I lied about who I was? Tyler shook his head. I'm confused, yeah, but I get why you did it. How many people have gotten close to you just for your money? Too many. That's why I never said anything. I wanted you to know me for who I am, not what I have. And I do know who you are, Emma. You're the caring woman who helps me study economics, who laughs at my bad jokes, who dreams of having a happy family. The rest is just circumstances. Tears of happiness streamed down Emma's face. My dad wants to meet you. He found out about us last night. How did he find out? He found my wedding dress hidden in the closet. Tyler turned red. Wedding dress? Emma, I haven't even officially proposed yet. I know, but I was so excited, so sure this was what I wanted. I bought it hoping you'd ask soon. Tyler laughed, despite the tension. Well, then let me do this right. To Emma's surprise, he stood up and knelt right there in the middle of the library. A few students glanced over curiously, but Tyler didn't care. Emma Anderson, will you marry me? Even though I can't give you a life of luxury, at least not yet. Yes, she answered without hesitation, hugging him while he was still on his knees. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Later that day, Richard was in his office when he got a call from Emma. Dad? I talked to Tyler. He really wants to meet you. Can we have dinner tonight? Richard hesitated. He had hoped for more time to prepare, maybe look further into the young man. Tonight? I know it's last minute, but he proposed today officially and I said yes. Richard closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the situation. All right, 8 o'clock. Tell him to come ready for a serious conversation. Dad, promise you'll give him a real chance? I promise I'll be fair." Richard hung up and immediately dialed Mrs. Betty, the housekeeper who had taken care of his home for years. "Mrs. Betty, we'll have a guest for dinner tonight. Prepare something special." "Of course, Mr. Richard. How many people?" "3, and Mrs. Betty." "It's a very important dinner." The rest of the day passed in a fog of anxiety. Richard could barely concentrate during his meetings, constantly thinking about the upcoming encounter. He had strategies for business, for tough contracts, for complex situations. But he didn't know how to handle the possibility of his daughter marrying a man who earned in a year less than he spent in a month. By 7:30 in the evening, Richard was at home wearing his best suit. He had instructed Mrs. Betty to prepare dinner in the main dining room, the one they only used for special occasions. He wanted to make it clear from the start, the difference between his world and Tyler's. Emma arrived first, visibly nervous. She wore a simple but elegant navy blue dress, shedding her college student look and embracing her true identity as an heiress. "How are you feeling?" Richard asked. "Nervous. Tyler is really anxious too. He changed his outfit 3 times before leaving home." "And how did his mother take the news?" "Mrs. Ruth was happy for her son but worried about the social differences. She understands the complications this could bring." Richard nodded, appreciating the woman's wisdom. At exactly 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Richard watched from the window as a plainly dressed young man stepped off a bus at the corner. There was no taxi or personal car. Tyler walked down the residential street of the Upper East Side, gazing at the mansions with a mix of admiration and discomfort. Mrs. Betty opened the door and led Tyler to the living room. Richard observed everything from his position on the stairs, analyzing every move of his future son-in-law. Tyler wore black dress pants and a crisp white shirt, likely his best clothes. His shoes were simple but clean and well kept. He carried a small bouquet of flowers, which Richard recognized as being from his own company's garden. "Good evening, Mr. Anderson," Tyler greeted respectfully as Richard descended the stairs. "Tyler, welcome to our home." "Thank you for having me, sir. I brought these for Emma." He extended the bouquet. "They're from the company garden. I know she likes flowers." Richard noticed the young man had chosen the flowers carefully, arranging them simply but harmoniously. "How lovely," Emma exclaimed, kissing Tyler on the cheek. Richard watched their interaction. There was genuine tenderness between them, a mutual care that was hard to ignore. "Shall we go to dinner?" Richard gestured toward the dining room. Tyler followed, his eyes widening at the sight of the setting, the mahogany table for 12, the crystal chandeliers, the original paintings on the walls. Everything represented a world completely different from his own. "Your home is beautiful, Mr. Anderson," he remarked politely. "Thank you. I've worked many years to provide comfort for my family." They took their seats, Richard at the head of the table, Emma and Tyler across from each other. Mrs. Betty served an elaborate appetizer, which Tyler ate carefully, clearly uneasy with the formal protocol. "Emma told me you're studying business administration," Richard began. "Yes, sir. I've always been interested in business, especially environmental management and landscaping." "And do you plan to work in that field after graduation?" "My dream is to start a landscaping company. I want to create green spaces in urban areas, promote sustainability. I know it's still a small market, but I believe in its potential." Richard was surprised by the young man's articulate response and clear goals. "And how do you plan to support a family with that?" "Landscaping isn't exactly a lucrative business." Tyler took a deep breath before answering. "Mr. Anderson, I know I can't offer Emma the lifestyle she has here, but I can offer honest work, dedication, and a lot of love. I plan to build my business gradually, always with ethics and responsibility." "What if I offered you a better job, a managerial position at my company, with a salary 10 times higher than your current one?" Tyler fell silent for a moment, clearly tempted by the offer. "That would be an incredible opportunity, Mr. Anderson, but I have to ask, is this offer because you recognize my professional potential or because I'm dating your daughter?" The direct response took Richard by surprise. The young man not only politely declined a tempting offer, but questioned his motives. "Are you turning down a chance to improve your life?" "I'm not turning it down. I'm questioning whether it would be a real opportunity or an attempt to control me." Richard felt a mix of irritation and admiration for Tyler's honesty. "Dad," Emma intervened, "Tyler doesn't need your charity. He's building his own career." "Emma, you're pregnant. You need financial stability, resources to raise a child properly." "And we'll have them," Tyler replied firmly. "Maybe not in the first year or the first few years, but we'll build our stability together." Together. What if Emma needs special medical care during the pregnancy? What if the baby has complications? Do you have health insurance? Do you have savings? Richard's questions hit Tyler like punches. He hadn't considered all these practical issues. "Dad, stop," Emma protested. "No, Emma, they're valid questions," Tyler said calmly. "Mr. Anderson, you're right. I don't have my own health insurance. I use the company's. I don't have significant savings, but I have something money can't buy." "And what's that?" "I have true love for your daughter. I know her dreams, her fears, her hopes. I know she likes strong coffee in the morning and sweet tea in the afternoon. I know she has nightmares when she's stressed and loves old movies. I know she wants to be a mother more than anything in the world." Richard watched Emma as Tyler spoke. Her eyes shone, a soft smile on her lips. It was obvious she felt loved and understood. "And you, Emma?" Richard turned to his daughter. "Do you really believe love is enough?" "I believe true love is the foundation of everything, Dad. And from there, we build the rest together. Like your mother and I did." The question hung in the air. Richard remembered how he'd met Catherine. She was a secretary at a small company where he worked as a salesman. They'd married with no money, built everything together over the years. "Exactly like you and Mom did," Emma replied gently. Richard fell silent, stirring his food on the plate. Memories of Catherine surfaced, how she'd supported him in the tough early years, worked alongside him to build the business, sacrificed her own dreams so he could pursue his. "The difference is, I had ambition," he said finally. "I wanted to build something big, wanted to grow." "And I do too, Mr. Anderson," Tyler answered. "It's just that my definition of success might be different from yours." "How so?" "To me, success is having a happy family, fulfilling work, and being able to help others. Not necessarily having millions in the bank." Richard sighed, frustrated. "Tyler, you're young and idealistic, but life is hard. Money doesn't guarantee happiness, but the lack of it certainly causes suffering." "I agree, sir. That's why I work hard and study to improve my situation. But I won't compromise my values to speed up the process." Dinner continued in a tense atmosphere. Richard tested Tyler with questions about economics, business, and financial planning. To his surprise, the young man handled most of them well, showing solid theoretical knowledge and logical reasoning. By dessert, Richard made his final move. "Tyler, I'll be direct with you. If you truly love my daughter, you should consider what's best for her and the baby. I can offer you $500,000 to walk away. It's enough money for you to finish college, take care of your mother, and start your business." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma turned pale, staring at her father in disbelief. Tyler set his fork down on the plate and looked directly into Richard's eyes. "Mr. Anderson, did you just offer me money to abandon the woman I love and the baby we're going to have?" "I'm offering everyone a chance to make the right choice." Tyler slowly rose from the table. "The right choice? You think the right choice is for me to leave Emma pregnant for money? I'm thinking of her future." "No," Tyler interrupted, his voice firm but respectful. "You're thinking about your fear of losing control. And you know what? I don't blame you for that. If I had a daughter, I'd probably be protective too." Richard was surprised by Tyler's mature response. "But Mr. Anderson, I'd rather live in a tiny studio with Emma and our son, sharing a loaf of bread and being happy, than have $500,000 and live without her." "Tyler," Emma whispered, tears in her eyes. "And another thing, Mr. Anderson. If you really knew your daughter, you'd know she'd never forgive you for this, and she'd never forgive me if I accepted." Richard looked at Emma, who was clearly moved and proud of Tyler. "Dad, how could you?" she said, her voice trembling. "Emma, No, don't try to justify it. You just offered money to the father of your grandchild to walk away from us." Tyler sat back down and took Emma's hand. It's okay, love. Your father's trying to protect you, the only way he knows how. Richard watched Tyler's maturity in handling the situation and felt something unexpected: respect. "You're not offended?" he asked. "Not offended, Mr. Anderson. Sad, yes. Sad because I see you don't trust your own judgment of people's character, and most of all, you don't trust Emma's judgment." "What do you mean?" "You raised a smart, strong daughter who's capable of making her own decisions, but you don't seem to believe that." Richard fell silent, processing Tyler's words. "And if I don't approve of this relationship? Then you'll have to choose between accepting your daughter's happiness or losing her and your grandchild," Tyler replied calmly. "Are you threatening me?" "No, Mr. Anderson. I'm being honest. Emma loves me, and I love her. We're getting married with or without your approval. The difference is, with your approval, you'll be part of our family. Without it, well, that'll be your choice." Richard felt cornered. He'd tried to control the situation and now faced an ultimatum of his own making. "I need time to think about all this," he said finally. "Of course, Dad, but don't take too long. We have a life to plan," Emma said, standing up from the table. Tyler stood as well. "Mr. Anderson, thank you for dinner and your hospitality. It was a pleasure getting to know you better." Richard shook Tyler's outstretched hand, noticing its firm and confident grip. "Tyler?" "Yes, sir?" "Do you really love her?" "More than my own life, Mr. Anderson." After the couple left, Richard stood alone in the dining room, surrounded by the remnants of a dinner he'd planned as a show of power, but which had turned into a lesson in humility. Mrs. Betty came in to clear the plates. "How was dinner, Mr. Richard?" "Eye-opening, Mrs. Betty." "Very eye-opening." Richard walked to his study and poured himself another whiskey. This time his hands trembled slightly. He picked up a photo of Catherine he always kept on his desk and stared at it for a long moment. "What would you do, my love?" he whispered to the picture. He remembered a conversation he'd had with Catherine just a few months before she passed. Emma was 15 and had taken an interest in a boy from school. Richard, already showing his protective instincts, wanted to forbid the relationship. "Richard," Catherine had said, "you can't shield Emma from living. You can only guide her to make good choices. And for that, you need to trust the upbringing we've given her." Catherine's words echoed in his mind. He had spent years giving Emma the best education, the best values, the best opportunities. Why was he now doubting her ability to choose? He picked up the phone and dialed Michael's number. "Michael, I need more information about Tyler Johnson. This time I want to know about his family, the community he lives in, the people who know him. Richard, it's almost 11 at night. It's urgent. All right? But it'll take a few days to gather this information. Do whatever it takes." In the following days, Richard dove into an obsessive investigation about Tyler Johnson. He hired a private investigator to uncover everything about the young man, his family, and his life. Meanwhile, Emma barely spoke to her father. She and Tyler continued their wedding plans, now openly, without hiding anything. Richard watched his daughter leave every day to meet her boyfriend, always returning radiant and happy. A week after the dinner, Michael showed up at his office with a thick folder. "Here's everything I found on Tyler Johnson." Richard eagerly opened the folder, searching for something, anything, that would justify his suspicions. But what he found was a story that completely surprised him. Tyler had been born into a humble family in the South Bronx. His father had abandoned them when he was just 5. His mother, Ruth, had worked as a cleaner to raise him alone. Tyler had always been an exemplary student, but had to start working at 14 to help at home. The investigator had interviewed neighbors, teachers, and former employers. Everyone had nothing but praise. Tyler was described as respectful, hardworking, and compassionate. He had helped many neighbors in need, never expecting anything in return. Even more surprising was discovering that Tyler had saved a child from a fire 2 years earlier, risking his own life. The story hadn't made the news because the child's family had requested discretion. Richard closed the folder, feeling even more confused. Every piece of information he uncovered about Tyler contradicted his prejudices. That same day, he decided to do something he hadn't done in years. He walked through the city streets, observing ordinary people living their lives. He passed through the South Bronx, saw the modest homes, the families working hard to get by. He stopped in front of the house where Tyler lived with his mother. It was a small townhouse but well kept. The front garden was immaculate, with colorful flowers planted with care. He was about to knock when Tyler appeared, returning from work. "Mr. Anderson, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to meet your mother." Tyler was surprised but didn't hesitate to invite him inside. The house was simple but clean and cozy. The furniture was old but well maintained. Photos of Tyler at various stages of life were scattered around the living room. "Mom, we have a visitor," Tyler called. Mrs. Ruth came out from the kitchen, a 58-year-old woman with a face marked by hard work but kind eyes. "This is Mr. Richard Anderson, Emma's father." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Anderson. Tyler has told me a lot about you." "The pleasure is mine, Mrs. Ruth." She invited them to sit and served coffee in simple cups, but the coffee was delicious. "Sorry about the modest home, Mr. Anderson. We don't have much, but what we have we offer with love." "Your home is very welcoming, Mrs. Ruth." Tyler told me about the grandchild on the way. "I'm so happy. I've always dreamed of being a grandmother." Richard observed the woman's genuine joy. There was no envy or resentment, only happiness for her son's happiness. "How do you feel about Tyler marrying my daughter?" Mrs. Ruth hesitated for a moment. "Mr. Anderson, I'll be honest. I'm worried. Not because of Emma. She's a wonderful girl. I'm worried because I know your worlds are very different. And that doesn't bother you." "It doesn't bother me that your daughter has money, Mr. Anderson. What bothers me is that it might keep you from seeing that my son has other treasures to offer." Richard was moved by the woman's simple wisdom. "What treasures?" "Tyler has a pure heart, Mr. Anderson. Since he was little, he's always taken care of everyone. When I was sick and couldn't work, he cleaned houses on weekends so we wouldn't go hungry. He never complained, never rebelled." She showed Richard an old photo album. There was Tyler as a child, always smiling, even in the simplest pictures. "When he told me about Emma, I knew she was special. I've never seen my son so happy. And when I met your daughter, Mr. Anderson, she looks at Tyler the same way he looks at her." "Aren't you afraid Emma might change Tyler? That money might change him?" Mrs. Ruth laughed softly. "Mr. Anderson, I raised my son. I know his character. Tyler may have money or not, live in a mansion or the South Bronx, but he'll always be a person of integrity. That's how he was born. What if I don't approve of the marriage? Then you'll miss the chance to have a wonderful son-in-law and a grandchild who'll grow up far from their grandfather." The simplicity of her answer struck Richard deeply. "Mrs. Ruth, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Don't you hold any bitterness toward Tyler's father for abandoning you?" Her expression saddened for a moment. "I did for a long time, Mr. Anderson. But then I realized resentment only hurt me. Some people aren't ready to be parents. I won't say raising Tyler alone was easy, but look at the man he's become. Sometimes the greatest blessings come from the hardest challenges." Richard spent another hour in the humble home, listening to stories about Tyler as a child, looking at family photos, gradually understanding that there was far more richness in that simple house than in his luxurious mansion. When he left, Mrs. Ruth walked him to the door. "Mr. Anderson, may I give you some motherly advice?" "Of course." "Don't let pride steal your happiness. Life's too short to waste time on prejudices." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Richard returned home deep in thought. As he entered the mansion, it felt cold and empty. He walked to Emma's room and knocked. "Come in, Dad." Emma was studying on her bed, books scattered around her. "How are you?" "Good. And you?" "I heard you visited Mrs. Ruth." "How did you know?" "Tyler told me. He was happy, said you were very respectful." Richard sat on the edge of the bed like he used to when Emma was little, and he still had time for nighttime talks. "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you really believe you'll be happy with Tyler?" even with all the financial struggles you'll face? Emma closed her book and looked seriously at her father. Dad, I've never been as happy in my life as I am with Tyler. He makes me feel loved for who I am, not what I have. And yes, I know it'll be hard at first, but I'm willing to work, to help, to build our life together with him. What if I decide to support you, if I accept Tyler as my son-in-law? Emma's eyes filled with tears. Dad, that's all I want. I want you to really know Tyler, to see how special he is. I want our baby to have his grandfather present. Richard felt a lump in his throat. What if I decide to give Tyler a real chance at the company, a proper position where he can use the business administration knowledge he's been acquiring? Only if it's a genuine opportunity, Dad. Tyler is very proud. He won't accept charity. It wouldn't be charity. For the first time, it would be based on his merit. Richard stood up and kissed his daughter's forehead. Good night, sweetheart. Dad? Yes? Thank you for trying to understand. The next morning, Richard arrived early at the company and asked Tyler to come to his office. Yes, Mr. Anderson? Have a seat, Tyler. I want to propose something to you. Tyler sat down, clearly apprehensive. I'm creating an urban sustainability and landscaping department at the company. It's a new field that requires technical knowledge, vision, and hard work. I'd like to offer you the role of coordinating this department. Tyler fell silent, clearly surprised. Mr. Anderson, does this have anything to do with my relationship with Emma? Partly, yes. But mostly, it's about what I've observed of your character and skills. What exactly would my role be? You'd develop green space projects for our real estate developments, establish partnerships with universities for sustainability research, and oversee all landscaping aspects of the company's projects. Tyler thought for a few minutes. And the salary? $8,000 to start, with room for growth based on results. Mr. Anderson, can I be honest? Of course. Does this department actually exist? Or is it being created just to give me a better job? Richard smiled. The question showed the integrity he'd noticed in Tyler. It's being created now, but it's something I've been considering for months. Sustainability is the future of construction, and we need to adapt. What if I don't perform well? What if I don't meet expectations? Then you'd be fired like any other employee. Tyler extended his hand. I accept, Mr. Anderson, but on one condition. What? I want to work hard to prove I deserve this opportunity. I don't want anyone at the company to think I got the job just for being the boss's son-in-law. Deal. That night, Richard called Emma. I offered Tyler a position today. And he accepted? He did. And you know what? He set conditions. Said he wants to prove his professional worth. That's just how he is, Dad. He always wants to earn things on his own merit. Emma? Yes? I want to give you both my blessing for the wedding. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. Dad, are you serious? I am. I've gotten to know Tyler better, met his family, and I see you made a good choice. Dad, thank you. Thank you so much. And Emma? Yes? I want to help with the wedding. I want it to be a beautiful celebration worthy of my daughter. Dad, you don't have to. I want to. It's my gift to you both. In the following months, Richard watched Tyler in his new role. The young man arrived early, left late, studied constantly, and presented creative, viable ideas. In no time, he'd earned the respect of his colleagues. Emma's belly began to grow, and Richard found himself eager to meet his grandchild. He became more involved in his daughter's life, attending doctor's appointments and helping with wedding preparations. Tyler and Emma moved into a larger apartment, modest, not luxurious. They wanted to keep life simple, at least for now. One afternoon, Richard was working when he got an urgent call from Tyler. Mr. Anderson? It's Tyler. Emma fainted at college. We're heading to the hospital. Richard's heart raced. I'll be right there. At the hospital, he found Tyler in the hallway, clearly worried. How is she? The doctors are examining her. They said it might be low blood pressure from the pregnancy, but they want to run some tests. Richard watched Tyler pacing nervously down the hallway. The young man was visibly distressed, his hands trembling slightly. Tyler, she'll be okay. Mr. Anderson, if anything happens to her or the baby, I wouldn't know how to go on." The sincerity of the statement touched Richard deeply. "Nothing will happen. Emma is strong." The doctor appeared a few hours later with a serious expression. "How's my daughter?" Richard asked immediately. "She's stable, but we need to talk. Her blood pressure spiked, and there are signs of excessive stress. This could be dangerous for the pregnancy." "Stress? What kind of stress?" Tyler asked. "Emotional stress. She mentioned she's been under family tension lately." Richard felt a weight on his conscience. His resistance to their relationship had put his daughter and grandchild at risk. "Doctor, what do we need to do?" "Complete bed rest for 2 weeks, and most importantly, she needs a calm environment, free of conflict or tension." "You can count on us," Tyler said right away. "Mr. Anderson, you also need to understand the seriousness of this. Any additional stress could lead to severe complications." Richard nodded, understanding the responsibility he carried. Emma stayed under observation for 2 days. Richard spent nearly all that time at the hospital alongside Tyler. It was during those hours of waiting that they truly talked for the first time without the barriers of prejudice. "Tyler, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, Mr. Anderson." "Your father, do you miss him?" Tyler thought for a moment. "I missed him a lot as a kid, especially when I saw other boys with their dads. But over time, I realized he wasn't ready to be a father, and in a way, that taught me the kind of dad I want to be." "What kind?" "Present. No matter the circumstances, I want to always be there for my child." "What if things go wrong? What if you and Emma don't work out?" "Mr. Anderson, I'll do everything in my power to make it work. But if for some reason it doesn't, I'll still be a present father. My child will never have to wonder if their dad loves them." Richard was struck by the maturity of the answer. "Tyler, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of being a grandfather. Scared of repeating the mistakes I made as a father. Emma was right when she said I always prioritized work. I missed so many important moments in her life. Mr. Anderson, it's never too late to change, and now you have a second chance with your grandchild. Would you forgive me? If I were your father after everything I've done, would you forgive me?" Tyler looked Richard straight in the eye. "Mr. Anderson, I would forgive you, because I understand you did everything out of love, even if it was misguided, and because I believe people can change." When Emma was discharged, Richard had made an important decision. "Emma, I want you and Tyler to get married here at the house, in the garden. I want it to be a beautiful celebration, with both families together." "Dad, are you sure?" "I am. And I want to invite all of Tyler's family, all your friends and neighbors. I want to meet the people who matter to you." The wedding was set for 2 months later. Richard personally handled the preparations, hiring the best vendors, but always consulting the couple on their preferences. Days before the wedding, Tyler came to see him in his office. "Mr. Anderson, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Tyler. Actually, I think you can call me Richard now. After all, you'll be my son-in-law in a few days." Tyler smiled. "Richard, I want to thank you for giving me a chance, for accepting our love, for supporting our family. Tyler, I'm the one who should be thanking you. You taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account. And I learned that having money isn't necessarily bad, as long as it's not the most important thing in life." "Exactly. And Tyler..." "Yes?" "Promise me you'll take good care of my daughter and my grandson." "I promise, Richard, with my life." The wedding day dawned sunny. The garden of the mansion was decorated with flowers Tyler had personally chosen, creating an atmosphere that was both elegant and welcoming. Richard watched as the guests arrived: Tyler's humble family, his co-workers, their neighbors from the South Bronx, mingling with the businessmen and high society figures who were Richard's acquaintances. Mrs. Ruth arrived wearing a simple yet beautiful dress that Emma had picked out for her. She was visibly emotional and a little intimidated by the luxurious setting. "Mrs. Ruth, it's so good to see you," Richard greeted her warmly. "Mr. Richard, thank you for allowing our humble family to be part of such a beautiful celebration." "Mrs. Ruth, from today on, we're family, and this is your home too." The ceremony was simple and moving. Richard walked Emma down the aisle to the makeshift altar in the garden, where Tyler waited. visibly nervous and happy. When the priest asked if anyone objected to the marriage, there was a tense moment. Everyone looked at Richard, remembering his initial resistance. He stood up slowly. "I'd like to say something," he said, his voice carrying across the garden. Emma and Tyler exchanged worried glances. "For months, I opposed this marriage. I thought I knew what was best for my daughter, but I learned that true love can't be bought, sold, or negotiated. I learned that a person's worth is measured by the size of their heart, not their bank account." He turned to Tyler. "Tyler, you've earned not just my daughter's love, but also my respect and admiration. Welcome to the family." The garden erupted in applause. Emma was crying with emotion, and even Tyler had tears in his eyes. The celebration continued with music, dancing, and joy. Richard watched, fascinated, as people from such different worlds blended harmoniously, united by the celebration of love. During the party, Mrs. Ruth approached him. "Mr. Richard, may I thank you for everything?" "Mrs. Ruth, I should be thanking you. You've taught me that family is so much more than blood or money. It's love, respect, and unity. And now our grandchildren will grow up knowing both worlds. They'll be blessed children." Richard smiled, thinking of the baby due in just a few months. "Mrs. Ruth, I'd like to make a proposal." "What is it?" "How about we build a little house for you here on the property? That way, you'd be close to Tyler and the baby, and I'd have the pleasure of your company." Mrs. Ruth was speechless for a moment. "Mr. Richard, that's so generous, but it's not generosity, Mrs. Ruth. It's necessity. I need to learn how to be a grandfather, and I'm sure you can teach me a lot about being a better person." Months later, when little Ethan was born, Richard was in the hospital waiting room with Tyler and Mrs. Ruth. When the doctor announced that mother and baby were doing well, the three of them hugged, crying with happiness. Richard held his grandson for the first time and felt an emotion he hadn't experienced in years. He looked at Tyler, who was gazing at his son with absolute adoration. "Thank you," Richard whispered. "For what?" Tyler asked. "For teaching me that love is more important than pride." Emma, still in her hospital bed, watched her father holding her son and her husband beside them. For the first time in years, her family was complete. "Dad?" "Yes, sweetheart. Mom would be proud of how you've changed." Richard looked up at the sky through the hospital window. "I hope so, Emma. I hope so." 2 years later, Richard was walking through the garden of his home, now transformed into a little green paradise by Tyler's skilled hands. Ethan, now a 2-year-old boy, ran between the trees, laughing and playing. Tyler had become one of the most valuable employees at the company, developing innovative projects that combined sustainability with profitability. His landscaping business had also grown, serving clients who came through referrals from Richard's construction company. Emma had graduated and worked part-time at the company, dedicating the rest of her time to their son and the social projects she had developed with Tyler in the South Bronx community. Mrs. Ruth now lived in the small house Richard had built at the back of the property. She took care of Ethan while his parents worked and had become Richard's confidant and advisor in many family decisions. "Grandpa! Grandpa!" Ethan ran toward Richard, stumbling on his little legs. Richard scooped him up, feeling that pure joy only grandchildren can bring. "What are we doing today, champ?" "Planting flowers with Daddy." Richard looked at Tyler, who was approaching with dirt-covered hands and a satisfied smile on his face. "How's the new project coming along?" Richard asked. "Perfect. The hospital's therapeutic garden is going to be beautiful. The kids there will love it." "And the budget?" "Under control. Actually, we saved 15% by using native plants." Richard shook his head in admiration. Tyler had become not just a beloved son-in-law, but a respected business partner and an exemplary father. "Tyler, yeah? I'm glad Emma didn't listen to me when I tried to keep you away from her." Tyler laughed. "Richard, if she had listened to you, she wouldn't be the Emma we know. She always knew what she wanted." "That's true. And you two taught me that sometimes the heart sees things reason can't." Emma appeared on the porch, 6 months pregnant with their second child. "What are you two talking about over there?" "About how your husband made me a better person," Richard replied. Dad, you were always a good person. You just needed to remember that. Richard looked around, his home now full of life, laughter, and love. The garden transformed, his family reunited, his grandson running free and happy. "You know what?" he said to Tyler. "When I offered you $500,000 to stay away from Emma, I made the stupidest proposal of my life. Why? Because now I understand you two gave me something priceless, a real family." Ethan tugged at Richard's beard. "Grandpa, tell a story." "What story do you want to hear?" "The story of how Daddy and Mommy met." Richard looked at Tyler and Emma, who were walking over hand in hand. "Once upon a time, there was a very stubborn businessman who thought he knew everything about life, until his daughter fell in love with a special young man, and he discovered he had a lot to learn about what really matters." "And what matters, Grandpa?" Richard kissed his grandson's forehead. "Love, family, and second chances, my champion. Love, family, and second chances." The end. So, what did you think of this heartwarming story? How would you have reacted if you were Richard, discovering your daughter had fallen in love with someone from a different social class? Do you think he made the right decision in the end? Share your honest thoughts about this story of love and overcoming obstacles in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories like this one.